It's Wellness Wednesdays. That just seems to have become a Wellness Wednesday jingle. I don't know why. It is Wellness Wednesday. Today, we are talking about maintaining your sanity during a dog pile. Obviously, continuing the theme of the week. I said yesterday I was going to talk about this as a separate issue between the more cerebral stuff. I do think it is important to, which is why I like doing, a set segment every week where we put emotions first so that we don't get into that gaslighty stuff of when you're criticizing somebody's ideas, people gaslight you and claim you're attacking somebody as a person just because you're not letting them get away with bad logic, right? If you like this sort of system, help support this channel, become a monthly patron, patreon.com/Lana K. I'm going to fully admit that this video was inspired by one tweet from somebody. The commenter is Oron Darklord. His Twitter handle something different. But, I was saying that a cancellation actually results in the loss of something of value. And he responded, what if that something of value is your sanity? And I realize that's its own thing. It has to be dealt with in a different way. Not that the two things aren't connected, because, look at the whole Gina Carano thing. I think the reason that one kicks so many people in the feels is that we watched this woman who, I don't know how you can't be a fan of Cara Dune. But, the character on The Mandalorian, she's freaking awesome. Whatever you think of Gina Carano as a person. But you watched her go from somebody who was just exceptionally naive on Twitter and Instagram and stuff like that to somebody who got, you watched her kind of slip down the rabbit hole of, election fraud and, a bunch of other kind of tinfoil hatty things, retweeting, so I don't know how to pronounce the guy's last name, but people who are pretty hard right online media types. And instead of going, this is a person who's hurt and scared and looking for things to make sense, people were like, oh, she's just bad. And, if you watch around Ben Shapiro for the Gina Carano part of the interview she did on Ben Shapiro, she basically said that she didn't follow politics. And the thing that kind of tipped it all off was the fact that she got 2 ballots in the mail. And that's what made her worried about fraud. And I don't know how it works in the US, but our mail-in, our remote balloting here, you can get as many ballots as you want. It happens a lot because of misprints. But, the time they log it is when it comes in. And they only log one with your name when it's received. It's same name, same address, right? You can't just fill in 2 ballots and they both count. Only one counts. Why didn't anybody just explain that to her? Why did it become this cycle of abuse where it culminated in, unfortunately, the apparent straw that broke the camel's back being an interpretation of something she said that, Republicans or conservatives are equivalent to Jews pre-World War II. That was what she was accused of in numerous media sources, when in fact, that's not what I took from what she said. And I am such a sensitive little flower that I don't like the way the word Nazi is thrown around. I didn't like that element of it. I wish people would stop Godwinning. But I did see her point, right? And I saw it as her saying that about everyone. Outside of the internet, some of us do have friends and acquaintances that have different political views than us. And there are certain things that you just don't talk about because you know if you do, it's going to lead to a fight, or you fight about it all the time because that's your thing. But you can see that someone is not totally there yet, but still know at their core they're a good person. There's just this block on certain issues, right? I have to be very patient with a lot of people. It's gotten a lot better in the last few years, I admit. But I had to use a lot of patience for a really long time with some people on trans issues, right? Because the whole, the whole correct terminology, and I was always the one going, they weren't born their assigned gender. They were assigned that gender. They were born the gender we're affirming now. And they're like, what? And it was frustrating for everybody, right? Like, I knew that what I was saying sounded like it didn't make sense to them. And I knew that what they were saying was upsetting to hear from me, and I think I got on board early with the trans stuff because I know what it's like to feel like you are crappy at being your gender. That is not the same as feeling like you are not your gender, right? There were times when I was a kid that I just thought my life would be so much easier if I had been born a boy, because I see guys get rewarded for a bunch of stuff that I got punished for, right? Especially assertiveness. Oh Lord. When I was a kid. But that's not the same as feeling like I was a boy. I don't really feel like anything. That's what I realized. Like, I realized I couldn't relate to, wow, there are some people that actually feel very strongly that they are one thing or they are another thing. There is an example of theory of other minds. In order to understand anything transhumanist, let's stick with transgender people to begin with. You have to be able to get comfortable with states of being that are not your own. I had to do that. And so I was sort of ahead on this stuff, but people thought I was crazy. Now it's better understood. But that's how change happens. That's not what happens online, right? People just try to bombard you with angry and scary and shame and gaslighting and accusations and ad hominem attacks, trying to get you to either give in or shut up. And, enough of that online has the exact same impact as that happening in real life. And the truth is that a lot of people, especially a lot of actors, right, get a ton of gaslighting in real life. Gaslighting is legendary in entertainment. People just tell you what you are. They tell you who you are. They tell you what you are. It's a business full of narcissists preying on people who just want some positive reinforcement, right? Or weird kids like me whose mother put her into dance lessons because I was painfully shy and tried to get me out of my shell. And it ended up I liked the mechanics of choreography. Go figure, right? Does that surprise anybody right now? Taking a systemized approach to the arts? Like, I liked that it was mathematical based, the 3/4 time, the 4/4 time. I still love 3/4 time for reasons I don't understand. And the fact that, music is in bars of 4, but dance is in bars of 8. And then, you can express these things in movement, and certain instruments mean different things, but it's not, I am my art. It's like, what a cool system. Right? And so I got really fascinated with the mechanics of the whole thing, not just the physical mechanics, but why choreography works certain ways, why, at least in the West, If you want to sense tension, you go from right to left instead of from left to right, because it's opposite the way people read stuff like that, the psychology of it. It wasn't my art, right? It was, so this is an interesting conversation. And I think that's why I kind of see the seams, see the matrix, for lack of a better term, in entertainment. But even, even I risked getting swallowed up at times with, you're too fat, you're too pale, you're too ugly, you're too old, you're too young, your boobs are too big, your butt's too big, your thighs are too big, your chin isn't long enough, get plastic surgery. People well-meaning, very well-meaning people would be, if you set your mind to it, you can lose those 20 pounds. It's like, oh, if I set my mind to it, I can make myself emaciated and sick. Awesome, good talk, right? It's there. And it's a self-perpetuating cycle. And so that's why I'm not terribly surprised that it's entertainers that tend to go cracky-uppy on the internet. They also have, some of the largest social media followings as well. Every so often you get, the Justine Sackos of the world, where it just sort of kind of happens. The thing is, that used to happen to people with TV news and even with radio back in the day as well. Before there was the internet, there were these local news stories that back in the days where people's numbers were listed in the phone book. And, there'd be this news story that people would see it through their framing and they'd get all mad and they'd actually start calling in threats to someone's leaving dead animals in their door and stuff like that. Sounds horrible, right? But yeah, everybody was doxxed in the days of the phone book. And while it didn't have the international scale, it was probably a few dozen people mad at you instead of 5 digits, 6 digits of people, 5 figures mad at you. This idea for a villain for the day, it didn't just Twitter villain of the day. It didn't just go away, right? I think expectations changed some. The idea, and I saw this change. There is a socialization thing that I saw change when I was younger, school age, right? And you didn't get along with someone. It was, you stay over there, you stay over there. I don't want to see you anywhere near each other. Imagine an imaginary line down the room. If you got to use the bathroom, tell me. Something changed, and suddenly it was, you're all on the same team. Everybody must get along or there's something wrong with you. And everything got weird when that happened. And I mean, I think that's part of the reason that Gen Xers sort of were left out of all the boomer, millennial, zoomer, whatever fights. We're the generation that's happy to be forgotten. There probably isn't even going to be a Gen X president, because why would we want that shit? We were good with people not liking us, because you know what? We didn't like them either. And what the outside world sees as apathy was really just kind of a thick skin. And does that mean we didn't have big time mental health problems? No. But you certainly didn't hear about anxiety conditions, and people had, there were people who had clinical depression. It was just starting to be a thing when we were in high school, but it wasn't It wasn't off the charts the way it is now. And it just seems to me that it's just pushing people more tightly and tightly and tightly together. So people don't have that mental space. People don't have that boundary of where they end and other people begin. We know that's unhealthy. And as living conditions get more cramped, as, you know, the statistics on Zoom fatigue are brutal. The Economist just did a chart, and the largest portion of men and women, but the numbers are higher for women, they have less than 15 minutes between Zoom meetings in a workday now. I would never schedule that. No way. I'd go insane. I would be a lunatic. There are other ways, you know, okay, send me an email. We'll set up a call once I review it. But that sense that you always have to be there, and you know, women's calls go longer and this, that, and the next thing, we don't know why, we just know it is. But that no more than 15 minutes between Zoom calls, that's not enough time to like go pee, get a little snack, and get another cup of coffee. Like, holy shit. If I was still using coffee pods, it would be enough time. But now that I'm using a coffee maker, it's not enough time. I miss my coffee pods. But this isn't going away, right? We're going to have to get more used to the noise. And that is what it is, right? That is what the bulk of shit on the internet is. It's noise. It's static that disconnects you from your own little voice. You know, the bombardment campaigns, the dog piles, the brigades, the harassment campaigns. They're all some version of don't believe your own eyes and ears, believe me, right? It is a form of mass gaslighting. I read certain Twitter hashtags and go, this is not organic, right? But again, I'm the kid who always sees the system, so I can do that. People who are more sensory, feeling, perceiving people, the overwhelm has got to be overwhelming. That was profound, wasn't it? But yeah, if you're not able to process that through systemized thoughts, it's just gotta be like, why is this happening? Why is everybody mad at me? What's going on? And I admit some of the times I'm like, why? But I've trained my brain to go, oh, okay, there's that. And there's that, and that's a shame tactic, and that's a shame tactic, and that's gaslighting, and that's an emotional appeal, and that's just a straight out straw man. I didn't say that. Understanding logical fallacies can help the logical. If you're not a logical person, it's just going to make you feel unheard. And so I'm not going to recommend that for this Wellness Wednesday, because Wellness Wednesday is all about practical solutions, right? And putting your phone down doesn't always work either, because you know the bombardment is still going on. This is where self-compassion comes in, right? You do not have to respond to every person. It is not, you're still good even if everybody doesn't like you. I don't care what your 3rd, 5th, and 8th grade teacher said. No, everybody is not going to like you. Nobody has people who everybody likes. I look at some of the acts I love and the shit they take on the internet, and I'm like, are they seeing the same things I am? But there's some people out there who just really love The Sims. And I can't get my head around that, but that's cool. You don't have to hate The Sims just because I hate The Sims. Some people I know just love Grand Theft Auto 5, mostly guys, and I get that. That's who it was made for. Cool. Um, and obviously, not liking a thing is not the same as not liking a person. But I find it easier to deal with other people not liking you. And let's face it, that's pretty much a Twitter dog pile. That's what it is, right? You're wrong because people don't like you. It's not making the best argument. People don't even try. It's go kill yourself and I hope you die and delete now and what is that? It's trying to convince you that you're wrong because you're unpopular. And if you're somebody who can look at other people and go, you know what, I really don't like that person, but they're really good at their job, and I respect what they do, it gets easier to handle people thinking you suck online or in anywhere. That's harder than you think. It's hard to, when you've been brought up to believe that not liking someone is bad. Not liking someone means there's something wrong with you. You just didn't give them enough of a chance. It's hard to admit you don't like somebody. I really think that's what's driving this whole ridiculous outrage, faux social justice kick, that people have to demonize someone because they can't admit they just don't like them. But I'm going to leave you with a metaphor for one of my favorite TV shows of all time. The Golden Girls. I don't know if you know very much about the history of the Golden Girls. The Golden Girls is one of the best sustaining, most progressive, shows of all time. It was a show about, women in their 50s and older at a time where that just wasn't done. When it was focused on them and not, husband, wife sort of thing. They dealt with racism. They dealt with, non-binary gender. I forget which Golden Girl had a son who he was a cross-dresser at the time, but even bringing that up there as a thing, a person who's valid. They were dealing with the Confederate flag. They were dealing with opioid addiction. Rose Nyland had an opioid addiction. It was prescription drug addiction they called back then. It's they were ahead of their time. But B. Arthur and Betty White weren't friends. They were work colleagues, but they weren't friends. They had totally different processes with acting. They were very different people. B. Arthur was really, really professional, partially because she was extremely introverted. So she probably thought a lot like me, where, you go in, you do the process, you do the work. That's your job. Stick to your lane. That's where you're comfortable. Betty White, she'd done so much television, right? So it'd be Arthur with Maude, but Betty White would break the fourth wall a lot and make little nudge and winks to the audience. And B. Arthur found that terribly unprofessional, right? But B. Arthur also insisted that they have lunch, all four of the cast. The cast have lunch together, things like that. Because even though they didn't like each other, they respected each other. It wasn't a war, right? I'm sure if things were handled somewhat better, if they'd realized that, B. Arthur constantly being the butt of jokes about her being ugly, stuff to this day I still don't understand. They had a run-on thing that they constantly made fun of Dorothy's looks, and that probably wears on you when you're a tall woman at a time that it wasn't okay for women to be tall. I don't get that one either. But, there was a show that was a classic, and they did their jobs, and All of them, all of those women. Estelle Getty had apparently incredible stage fright. And she was apparently developing early Alzheimer's symptoms. And they had to have cue cards, right? To hold up. She couldn't remember lines because a combination of like sheer terror and, a degenerative brain condition. And could you imagine that now? Like now it would be B. Arthur and Betty White refusing to work together. And somebody would go to the press and say, Estelle Getty needed cue cards. She's not capable of doing this job. And, they would have canceled her off the show. That wasn't how it worked back then. There was a sense of true professionalism. Not the shit they throw at you now to gaslight and shut you up. But a real sense of true professionalism that everybody brought something to the table that was valuable. Because, God, Estelle Getty, she was supposed to be like an occasional character, but she tested so well in the pilot that she was added to the regular cast. I know, Sophia, you'd think that she was there from the beginning, but she wasn't. They actually had a gay guy who was their cook at the start. And they realized that this doesn't really fit in that show. But look at how ahead of their time they were. They even considered that, right? But there's an example of people who weren't flawless, weren't besties. They respected what each other did and they got the job done. Were they always super nice to each other? No, but they knew when to cut the crap. And if you exist in that world, if that's the way, that's the sort of ethic that you bring to the table, yes, a lot of people will choose to opt out. But that means that you won't be surrounded by backstabbers. You will gradually have people around you who do have your back. And that is the best thing you can do for your mental health, is know that there are people that they're not perfect, right? Everybody has their flaws. Everybody has these weirdness, but there's a group of people around that you can talk to when you're having a bad day, and they will not betray a confidence and they will not screw you. That is essential for mental health. And that is what the internet has taken away. That is the perception that the internet has taken that away for so many people. I think the problem is that some of the socializations that came up, like I said, that everybody's got to be friends instead of, you don't like each other. You just don't like each other. There are plenty of people I don't like as people. You'll never know. Because I respect them as thinkers, I respect them as colleagues, I respect them as professionals, and I will not say a harsh word about them in public. Because why? So I think they're, if I think they're doing something actively immoral, that's different. But that's not just not liking someone, right? That's not respecting them at that point. If somebody's a serial cheat, and it's not, a polyamorous relationship or anything like that. If they're actually cheating, I don't respect that. But if somebody's just, obnoxious about certain things, I don't like that. I'm not going to be around them if I can avoid it. But if they're really good at certain things, I know how to work with them. That's the spot you need to get into in order to navigate these online environments, because you need an insulation against gaslighting, because as long as it works, people are going to continue to do it. The goal is to stop it from working. I'll find another thing that works, but at least we'll conquer this problem, right? All right. If you found this helpful, help support this channel, become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LeannaK. Thanks for watching. And if you didn't like this video, That's okay.